In this video, I'm going to take you on a voyage of exploration and discovery. Now, this is the village of Prenden, which is approximately 38 kilometers from Berlin as the crow flies, more or less. And I'm staying down here. This is what's called a Stellplatz. That's a place where you can leave a motorhome. That's a German word for it. In French it's called air. In Italian it's sosta. And in English it's a place you leave a motorhome. Usually use the French word or the German word. And let's come down here in this direction. And so we're going to a voyage of exploration. But I've given the game away because I said that and discovery. And so because I know what's down here because I came here 2 days ago. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. The original plan was something to do with at 5, but I was expecting it to rain, and as the rain appears to have been postponed for the moment, I can come into the forest and show you. I'm going to take you to an abandoned East German youth camp. Well, it's a fixed youth camp built on the site of the home of Josef Göbbels. So that is the plan for today. And I've put protective trousers on because going into the forest where there was, because I read the accounts for Josef Göbbels, and a lot of cash was spent on anti-mosquito measures, and so therefore I'm ready for them. So here we go. Walking through the forest, we've got what I sort of term this DDR road. You see this type of road, these concrete slabs with holes in them, put across, or along I should say, the length of the border, just behind where the border wall was. This was for the control of the border. But anyway, this is nowhere near where the border was. And coming here, we've got this gate, and note there's a barbed wire fence with the coming inwards. But I think that all of this is from the time of East Germany. So I'll give you a little bit now of the background to where we're going. So Goebbels was given a house, or given a property I should say, really, because there was a forester's house in a very large amount of land, which was given to him on his 39th birthday by the city of Berlin, which had obtained it, as I understand, around 1895 or thereabouts. And Goebbels built his house here, and then after the war, my understanding is it was used by the Red Army as a field hospital, and then Erich Honecker, later to become the big boss in East Germany, he requested the use of the land for his version of the Honecker Youth. Only it wasn't called that, it was called the Free German Youth, FDJ, and thus became a large resort, I suppose is the word for them. And in time, this area started to accept people from other communist countries, such as Hungary, but also from other non-communist countries as well. Anyway, we'll see that once we get to it. And here is the business, and the tracks lead into the business and also through the forest. Now it's already rained twice, and twice I stopped to ask myself, do I want to continue and get soaking wet? But see how it goes. If it starts pouring down, I'm now in a situation where I'm going to get absolutely soaked. Fortunately, I have plenty of dry clothes in the motorhome. I can take all my clothes off, have a hot bath shower if I want, and then I shall be okay. Right, so we've also got this barrier here. Could this be from Nazi times? I don't think so, actually. This road to me is absolutely DDR-ish rather than from the Nazi period. So there's a pair of green woodpeckers in there, but by the time I started filming, and also with my telephone, well, they've gone, haven't they? But with the telephone anyway, it's going to be difficult. Oh, there's a deer. No, sorry, a rabbit, a hare. It was a hare. Wow, a big one. You can see that not many people come down here any longer, although there are people who come to this area for walks, and it's really close to Berlin in any case. So sometimes it's paved and sometimes it isn't. Now in the background you can hear the motorway. That's the motorway between Berlin and Szczecin in Poland. It's about about 3 kilometers or so from here, but you can hear it quite clearly. And the forest largely pine, but in some places it's mixed. I'd have to say though, I was on the in Thuringia, walking along the border 3 weeks ago, a former border I should say, and there the forest seemed absolutely full of life, whereas here it doesn't. Not much bird song compared to there, for example. And in the forest there's a pillbox. Somebody's put some bags in it, and as you'd expect in a place like this, it's full of insects. Bags with leaves in. Seems a bit silly, don't know why. Why should there be a pillbox here? Now notice it's got two embrasures facing this way. So that gives the suggestion it's protecting from a danger coming from this direction. Suggests, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Now, how old is the pillbox? That I don't know. That's number one point. But in 1942, in October 42, there was an attempt to kill Goebbels using an IED. And the IED was placed on the bridge between his home in Schwanenwerder, which is on the Havel, the lake which is to the west of Berlin. And so the idea was for it to blow up as Goebbels passed. And it didn't work. The person was caught and executed. I'll do a separate video on the this genuine plot to kill Goebbels, because there was a false plot which he sort of made up for whatever reasons. And but after that, he got in a bit of a panic, and he started putting or he put more security here, higher fences up. Indeed, he'd acquired more and more land through what I would say highly dubious means. And but bear in mind, Nazi Germany was a highly corrupt state. So we've got a house here which Goebbels obtained and was furnishing and doing up during the war. Admittedly, it was the beginning of the war, but all the same, this was when normal people in Germany couldn't get staples such as coal. And but for Goebbels, there was 200 people could come here and work on getting his house done up, rather than be at the front or working in armaments or something like that. Admittedly, as I say, it was the beginning of the war. But highly corrupt state. The 3 million Reichsmarks were spent, invoiced, on the construction of this house here. That's, at the time, that's roughly what, £300,000 approximately at the time. So an absolute fortune. And that's not including the land or what was done before this period. Now, there, got this house, guard house, and there's a gate. Obviously it's getting in, and I think that is from socialist times. And now we come in, we've got some buildings here. Got this breeze block like wall, very similar to the one around Berlin. And there's a chimney. So this dates to the time when this was part of the East German camp here. I don't know what this here is for. Somebody might know. So if you've got any ideas or suggestions about what things are, do write them down. So we've got here in this camp out sports facilities. This could well be a sports hall. Now Goebbels did build a swimming pool here, but I think that was improved upon later. Goebbels also had his own heat and power plant. And that sounds quite grandiose, but yeah, you could take a boiler room if you like. So at the time when Berliners were going cold, or getting cold, no coal, even the radiators in his own ministry were stone cold in the winter of 1939-40 and 40-41. But out here at Lanke, or Bogensee, Lanke is usually the word, that's the village which is to the south, or Bogensee, which is the name of the lake. Why did I stop where I'm stopping? The reason is because there's a place for motorhomes, a special place, so there wasn't at Lanke. So that's why I stopped there. In 2008, I went to Himmler's headquarters in East, formerly East Prussia, in northern Poland, Mazuria. And as we walked through this somewhat dense forest, and we came across these large pyramid-like structures, not quite like Mayan pyramids. And I felt like a 19th century explorer as we discovered these 7 huge structures. It was really quite exciting. And as a child, there was a place not far from where I lived, what, 3-4 kilometers. And there's this an abandoned hall there. And look, that abandoned hall was like half the size, or country house I should say, of this building. And as we come in here, we've got this huge abandoned structure. Oh, even a bus stop here. Let's go and have a look at the bus stop. Is the bus stop still in use? How could that be possible? Who is coming here? Well, somebody must do. Lanke, Bogensee, Bildungsstätte. Oh, look at that. So there is. Monday to Friday, Wandlitz, Lanke. Oh, that. Oh, so, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buses a day. Right. Well, you're not supposed to go in. But, well, I don't know, it says going in des Grundstückes, so I take that to mean the real estate property, rather than, sorry, the buildings, rather than the land, although that's an arguable point. So here, this is a road of type which even 19th century you can see. This has been abandoned since the end of the East Germany. So it's I know it's been completely abandoned since at least 1998. So yeah, 25 years. House Budapest. Now, the thing is, what can be done with it? That's the problem. The land and the buildings belong to to Berlin, the city of Berlin, and it has doubt. It's all the fear in Germany is always that something might become a Nazi shrine, and so it wants to stop things of that nature. In this structure here, there was the second largest translation facility in East Germany. So these translation facility, that's to say when somebody sits in a booth, listens to what one person's saying and just repeats it, except in the target language. I did training for that. I wouldn't want to do it. But, I did training for that in French and Spanish when I was a student. Now this building's called Reggio di Calabria. So why would it name the building Reggio di Calabria? Was it hoping to get communists here from southern Italy to see the wonders of East Germany? So this is real history. This is what you can do if you get out and go looking for things, and what you can see and what can turn up in the forest. we've got a sign here, a bit the worse for wear, and okay, well, I get the impression, so here are the names of the buildings. It's a house, Potsdam, Budapest, Reggio di Calabria, Vienna. There's a House Bogensee, is a restaurant, so we'll be seeing the House Berlin Reception Centre, Landhaus am Bogensee. You can see, I looking at the way it's written, it doesn't look like it's from the DDR times, but that sign, it has seen better days, and I think the sign is definitely from East Germany. And we also got a little bit extra information there that the Goebbels' former house was later a restaurant. And here it is. This is the home that Goebbels had built in 1939, 1940. This that cost at least 3 million Reichsmarks, at least, paid for to a large extent by the German film industry, although the German taxpayer also contributed. This is the place, for example, where he wrote his total war speech. The famous speech he gave after Stalingrad in February of 1943. And so he was out here enjoying this luxury surroundings. And then he wrote this speech. Now, the Bogensee text there could actually be from DDR times. I've forgotten that. There are no photographs of the interior from the time that Goebbels was here that I know of. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't any, but that I know of. There you go. Can you see inside? It's not very clear, is it? Oh. The doors. This was just one of 3 houses he obtained in the 1930s. Goebbels appears to have come out here for the first time in the middle of September 1936. The location was chosen by Karl Hanke, who was his assistant at the time. In his diary, Goebbels writes, "All around, the deepest solitude. Hanke has done a good job." The Reich Labour Front provided the manpower to erect a 2-storey wood-framed house next to the water. In order to maintain the deepest solitude, a tall wire fence was put around the outside to keep out the riff-raff. After the 1936 Nuremberg rally, Goebbels flew to Greece with his family, and it is certainly worth reading his diary to get his description of what he saw as a tourist there. On returning to Germany, he set about furnishing the house at Lanke, probably with Lida Baarova in mind. However, the first Goebbels to put the house to its intended use was not Josef, but his wife Magda, who took Hanke there the day before the exchange of papers. I don't know if the two of them were involved at the time. However, Magda admitted in July 1939 that she was having an affair with Karl Hanke as from 1938. Who knows? It might have all started earlier. So, what we do know is that as Hanke was entertaining Magda, Goebbels took the opportunity to visit his house at Schwanenwerder, where he telephoned Lida Baarova to suggest that he pop round for a cup of tea. But all that in another video. Let's have a walk down to the lake's edge to see where the original house was. Obviously that is modern, but one of the expenses that the German taxpayer or the German film industry got landed with was the putting in a huge amount of bird tables and incubators and bird boxes in the forest. So you have this situation where Goebbels, one of the people behind the Holocaust, and yet he is putting all this stuff in for animals. Appear to be people living there. And it's raining, third time. Hallo, good morning. We can see here some trees have been knocked over completely and others are just deformed. I wonder what caused that. Of course, by the time that Goebbels built the house, the war had already started, but his first house he had here, he got this in 1936, so he was coming out here from 1936, so he's taking Lida Baarova out here from 1936. And one thing about Hermann Goering is that he did actually try to stop the war from happening, and it's possible that Goebbels now benefiting from the corruption in the Third Reich and being one of these people at the top of the Third Reich, and unlike Stalin's system, which if you lost your job you probably would even lose your life, Nazi Germany wasn't like that. He could have stepped down, he could have retired and gone into private life. He could have just said he didn't feel so good. He could have done all of this. And so therefore, with the war, he stood to lose everything. The two wonderful homes he had on Schwanenwerder. Here, this place, the home he was using in Hermann Goering Strasse number 20, the house, the home that came with his job as Minister of Propaganda, bang in the centre of Berlin. This is more or less next to where the Holocaust Memorial is today. And he had two cars, top of the range. His wife had a flash car. He had at least 2 speedboats, and there was a speedboat for his family as well. He had all of this. Admittedly, he wasn't the decision maker as far as wars are concerned. And you think of Hitler, he could have been up on that mountain enjoying himself for another 20 years, possibly. Let's see if he lived that long. Hitler was in pretty good physical state, even though he was a hypochondriac. But he lost it. He lost it all because of the war. And amongst his last words were "Les jeux sont faits," Goebbels said as he went out of the bunker for the last time. Les jeux sont faits. So he put his money down in the casino, and it was too late to change his mind. Now this is Bogensee. There were 2 swans on this lake, and Goebbels was coming here with Lida Baarova, who was very young. She was in her early 20s, only 21 when he met her. Hitler told Magda went off to Hitler and said, but a Czech actress has invaded our marriage, or words to that effect. And Hitler told Goebbels that he had to drop Lida Baarova and try to make his marriage work. And this here, just before this happened, there were 2 swans that lived on the lake, and one of the swans died, and Lida said, "It's an omen." How right she was. Lida Baarova, the actress, the Czech actress, she used to play vamp parts, because the parts that she used to play in films were possibly because the German film industry didn't want to use Germans to do it, so they had to get a Czech to actually do it. Her partner was Gustav Fröhlich, an actor, and he had a bit of a run-in with Goebbels one day, clearly very jealous of what Goebbels was trying to do with his girlfriend. And this happened at Schwanenwerder. He caught the 2 of them chatting one day, and well, the legend was he slapped him. He possibly didn't, but when he realised that it was a totally innocent situation, because Lida was talking to Goebbels. Goebbels was in the car, and Lida was sort of had a foot on the running board. And Fröhlich came back, went berserk, and then when he realised that Lida's handbag was inside the house, that he got the wrong side of the stick and had to apologise to Goebbels for what he'd actually done. But during the Second World War, he was actually called up. He was one of very few actors or noted people of cinema who actually did get called up for military service. You can hear a siren in the background. I don't know what it's for. Hope it's not an air raid. Which reminds me of the time when Goebbels, when he was here, he'd watch the bombing of Berlin. There was 2 stages in the bombing of Berlin. There was that 1940-41. And then there was from 43 until the end of the war. And in the first stage, this was relatively light bombing. I mean, obviously people died during it, and but by around 20 aircraft or thereabouts. And in the second stage, there was massed attacks using even hundreds of bombers. And Goebbels came out here to get away from the bombs as best he could. And in 1940, there was a time when he came out. There was a British plane that was shot down not so far from here, and Goebbels came out the following morning to see it. And also he saw the bodies of 3 burnt airmen who were obviously dead and been killed inside the aircraft. One weekend in April 1941, Goebbels invited some of the people from the propaganda ministry round to his home for the weekend, and he had boards, like boardwalks over the marshy areas. I suppose a bit like this. Okay, it's not marshy here, but where it was earlier, and like a bit like these concrete things now. Anyway, so he's out for a walk. And then he casually brought up the subject of the invasion of the Soviet Union. That's 2 months before it actually happened. And he started discussing the problems associated with the invasion of the Soviet Union. So as far as the Nazis were concerned, for many years they'd gone on about the dangers of communism and how bad it was. In 1939 they had their alliance with Stalin, so they had to change it. And then after the invasion they were going to have to go back onto their ideas of before. So it must have been quite a shock for those people with him, whereas the United Kingdom was still in the war, and effectively there was no end to the war in sight, yet Nazi Germany, Hitler, was taking on a new enemy. And they can see Bogensee through the forest. On the 31st of January 1945, after the Soviet breakthrough on the Vistula, which of course is a very long way from here, Goebbels had all this stuff packed up from here and sent to its house at Schwanenwerde on Havel to the west of Berlin. Unlike Goering, what Goering did, Goering's place, Karenhal, was about 35 kilometers to the northeast of here, approximately. Goering left it only at the very last moment. So in April of 1945, and he had it destroyed. He blew it up himself. So only got a few years enjoyment out of it. If only he'd stopped Hitler starting the war, then think about how long he could have enjoyed the house. The blinds here, the windows I should say, were electric. They would go up and down. And I suspect that what we see here, that is original. I don't see quite how they would go up and down. There's not much space for it, but they did go. They did slide somewhere. There was the initial house that was on this site. Well, Goebbels was bringing Lida Baarova there at the beginning. And in fact, this house itself, she didn't actually come here because this was finished after they split up. But it was like a forester's cottage. And despite being a listed building, there was fire damage to it in 2015. And it burnt, well, had to be torn down. So they decided they couldn't repair it. So that's why you're not going to see the original house on this spot. See, there appears to be people actually living in the houses down here. To the left here, there's some abandoned garages. And that is the house of Josef Göbbels. So when you see the word Lanke used, it refers to this place. Hitler came out here a few times. I can't say exactly how many times he came out, but he did come out here. Hitler, to a large extent, I think fair to say that he regarded the Goebbels family like his own family. So he wanted to stay with them. In Schwanenwerde, Magda even made a special, like a little place for him. So I hope you found that interesting. I've got lots of material on Goebbels. I have to film this other houses, all those people living in them, so I had to be careful there. And lots of other videos on his life. And so if you're interested in this type of thing, I do lots of stuff on the Second World War. Holocaust is my specialist subject. So if you'd like to see more, then please subscribe. But for the moment, from me at Goebbels' former house in the country at Lanke, thanks so much for watching and all the best.